Alright, everyone. I know it's probably going to be about 2 in the morning when I upload this, but I just finished watching Stone Cold Steve Austin's podcast with Triple H on it, and I'm here to give you my thoughts about it. It was actually a good sit through. This was way better than Vince McMahon when he was on there. That was, man. I mean, it was still good because it showed how out of touch Vince McMahon is with the product, but Triple H nailed this. I thought he was great. Um, and he kicks right off by talking about how the kayfabe in the WWE aspect is gone because everybody knows about the dirt sheets. They can just read off that now. Everybody just thinks about the business completely differently now because they were talking about the Royal Rumble, how Roman Reigns won, and everyone really wanted Daniel Bryan to win, and Triple H, kind of took exception. Well, he didn't take exception, but he was talking about how if it was like back in the Attitude Era, and no one knew about the business, everyone would have been fine with it. But everyone's like, oh, you should have put this guy, you should have put this guy, and they talk about how they should have done feuds this way, and how when they get behind a guy, they want them to push him all the way. So they know more. They talk about how the fans know more about the behind the scenes. That's why it's changed to the reality era now. So I thought that was good. I mean, he goes more in depth with it, but I don't want to give too much away for those of you that want to see this. Um, so I thought that was good. And he talked about that for a while. He also talked about NXT. One of them asked him a question like, how you push a guy, you normally, how you get that guy elevated. Like, is it easier to work with a guy that's had a lot of wrestling experience, or is it easier to work with a guy that has absolutely no wrestling experience? And Triple H said that well, actually, that wasn't the next thing, but I'm just going to talk about that now. He talks about NXT though. He talks about how that's his baby, because in his DVD he talked about how he loved the creation aspects of the WWE. He loves that. He talks about how he loves he didn't just like the matches, the in-ring aspects of it. He liked the outside, the creativity, the lighting, the cameras. He liked all of that stuff, and he was kind of offended when people said that he's only where he is at today because he's married to Vince's daughter Stephanie McMahon, and he said that it has nothing to do with that. He says he'd still be in the same spot, but not completely, because before he talked about a story about how before you met Stephanie McMahon, Triple H um, was asked by Vince McMahon to go into a room and talk about the storylines. Vince would come up with them, and him and Pat Patterson would come up with ways to make the storyline work, and he loved doing that. And that's what he likes about NXT. And he talks about NXT. He's not as tough as they would be on the main roster. This is his baby. He likes the main event. He likes you know uh, it's only an hour show that he has to work with. He talks about how he I'm really tired. I'm getting tired, so I'm just kind of wait. That's why I keep going on. But he talked about how he's not as strict about the promos. He lets them go out there and talk for themselves, and if they make a mistake, Triple H tells them what the mistake they made. Talks about how the camera angles is all the same, and how the arenas are all the same, and that they're constantly learning from these guys. He even talked about how Finn Balor was nervous about this because he wasn't used to the entrances. He was just told that when he was in Japan wrestling that you would just go out there and wrestle. You wouldn't do any entrances, nothing like that. So Finn Balor was nervous about that. Um, talked about how he takes a lot of time in the women's matches. He just loves the in-ring aspects of that. Um, he talks about how it's not. I actually didn't even know this. He talks about how it's not just the wrestlers that They're learning. It's also the camera guys, the lighting crew, the commentators. I actually didn't know that. And I actually thought that was pretty interesting. And they talk about too how there's a character doesn't work that they make new. But he talks about how they're not as strict on, and he's not. And he even talks about too how it's a completely different playing field. It's developmental. That's where you go before you get onto the main roster. Um, we actually found out too that Kurt Angle never watched wrestling before he came to the main roster because he was referencing that Kurt Angle never watched wrestling, but a guy that's been around the wrestling aspects forever. Because he talks about the reason how you have to go down to NXT is you have to get used to the WWE style of it. You have to get used to their the way that they wrestle because that's the way the other people like it. So I like that. Um, Talked about how when him and Stone Cold Steve Austin were working a match and he was attacked. Him Stone Cold was attacked by a fan, and Triple H suplexed this guy, and he was pretty well built. I thought that was funny. And then Triple H even talked about how he was actually supposed to win the King of the Ring in 1996, but he was being punished after what happened with the curtain call, which the Clique was involved in, which consisted of Triple H, Shawn Michaels, Razor Ramon, and Diesel. And he talked about how he was supposed to go over, but it ended up. But since he was being punished, he ended up going to Stone Cold Steve Austin instead. And he said that he wasn't ready for that spot at that time. He thought he was, but he was not ready for that spot. He would have He said he would have dropped the ball if he had been pushed to the main event. And Stone Cold Steve Austin was ready for that spot, and Triple H wasn't ready until later. So I thought that was awesome. And he even mentioned that too because everyone's talking about how Roman Reigns isn't ready for that top spot, and then he's like, "Well, who really is ready for that top spot?" Um, he even says that, he talks about how you think you're ready for that spot, but you're not really sure if you're there. And people who get to that top spot either just get lazy and don't work as hard, or a guy like John Cena who's at that top spot works harder than anybody in this company. He even talked about how everyone hates John Cena, but he gets the most reactions out of everybody. He gets the most merchandise sales, so that's why they keep pushing Cena. Um, I thought that was great. He talked about what else he talked about? Um, why China hasn't been inducted into the Hall of Fame because the reason why she hasn't been inducted is because it's not just about your accomplishments in the WWE. It's not about what you've done. She doesn't, because I guess she doesn't have a good history. I don't really know anything about that, but she doesn't want people to look her up because he's looking at it too because he has kids and he doesn't want his daughter to look her up and find out all this bad stuff about it. But he doesn't really go too hard into that. But I thought that was actually pretty interesting. That's why certain people don't go into the Hall of Fame because some of them have a bad record. Like, for example, I think that's why Scott Hall went in as Razor Ramon instead because if Scott Hall has a lot of drug problems. So I like that they brought that to my attention. So then he talked about CM Punk. Because when CM Punk had his podcast with Cole Cabana explaining why he had left, he mentioned that he hated Triple H. That Triple H had like a problem with him. And Triple H said that at first when CM Punk had come in from the OVW, which stands for Ohio Valley Wrestling, I think, he didn't even know who CM Punk was because he never got time to watch his stuff. And when it came around that stuff, when they were doing that storyline, when CM Punk had walked out, um, it wasn't everything that everything they were just trying to make him the big hot the next guy and Triple H and Triple H had everything to do with what was going on with Triple H going over and stuff. How Vince McMahon had everything to do with that. No, I think he was kind of bullshitting a little bit there, because I think. I mean, I could be wrong, but I think Triple H has some say about what matches he can win and what matches he can lose, So I think Triple H was bullshitting a little bit right there. But he did say that CM Punk took it personally, and he did say that he wasn't one for communications. He always was, because someone would tell him that something was going wrong with CM Punk, and he would check on him, and CM Punk said nothing's wrong. So I do like that he said that, brought that to my attention. What else he talk about? He talked about Undertaker's character because they were talking about characters and stuff, and Undertaker took that. Mark Calloway, who's Undertaker's real name, took the Undertaker character and really made it something. He talked about that for a little bit. Um, what else he talk about? I just watched it. Stone Cold Steve Austin listed like a list of superstars, and Triple H had to say the first name that came to his mind. Talked about Shawn Michaels, said he was the greatest wrestler. Talked about Kevin Nash, and he had the greatest mind for the business. Well, underrated mind for the business. Talked about Ric Flair, said a good all around superstar, which means good character wise and good in ring wise, all that. Um, Talked about Scott Hall, said that he learned the most from Scott Hall in the business, and he's the most underrated wrestler in the ring. Eddie Guerrero says that when Eddie Guerrero doesn't put himself down, he's actually a great human being. I know I'm getting ahead of myself. Talked about Goldberg and says that he brought back that intensity. He calls Brock Lesnar a freak, and he said somebody else. I forget who though. And he says that DX made a bigger impact than NWO. DX that consisted of Shawn Michaels, Triple H, the New Age Outlaws, which consists of the Road Dogg Jesse James and the Badass Billy Gunn, X-Pac, China, and Rick Rude. And they said they made a bigger impact because they were funny, but they could make things serious. And the NWO, which had consisted of a ton of guys, the main guys being Hulk Hogan, Scott Hall, and Kevin Nash. They said they just kind of dropped the ball because a bunch of people were just joining the group left and right. He talked about getting Bruno Sammartino and Ultimate Warrior into the Hall of Fame, and he said that he wanted to make a connection between them, and Vince McMahon wasn't really sure if it was going to happen because he thought that they still hated him, but he ended up making it work, and he said that there was certain hard things about it because Bruno Sammartino never could really trust Triple H because back when Bruno Sammartino was wrestling, you couldn't really trust people, but Ultimate Warrior, they kind of had like a bad falling out, I guess. So that's kind of what happened there. You can hear more about it if you watch the podcast, though. Because I don't really want to give away everything at once. I kind of want to just go from what I know. So what else does he talk about? He talks about something else that I wanted to mention. I can't remember. But at the end, he says the things that he would change about Raw. Is he would have more times for the woman matches, which I agree with. I think they should have more time because Triple H, if you notice that when Triple H is running NXT, the woman matches are much longer there than they are on the main roster, and you damn know that. He talked about that he would make it back to 2 hours because they say that it's really tough to book the third hour of Raw, which I actually didn't know. Maybe take out the promo segments, he said, because he hates having the 20-minute promo segments. He also said that he wants to have more longer storylines. He wants to drag them out a little bit longer, but he said that that's kind of tough because most fans today don't like that they drag out storylines too long. Now, I'm not one of those fans. I do like to see storylines go a while. Certain storylines go too long. You can't have a storyline go too long, but I agree with Triple H. He talked about other things on this podcast, but I want you guys to check out this podcast because I don't want to just tell you everything that happened because I don't want to be a spoiler. I mean, if you clicked on this video, then you're pretty much a spoiler anyways. But I want to talk about something. See, Triple H is the guy that definitely should be running the company now, like the main roster. Now, the reason it's tough for him to do that kind of is because it's gonna be tough for him to run a 3-hour show than a 1 hour, a 1 hour show. It's gonna be pretty tough, and the 2 hour SmackDown he's gotta run too. You know, he even talked about too how he would have the final say. So Triple H is learning. NXT says that if he doesn't have to go to Vince, it's all his ideas. So we liked that. But I really think Triple H is the guy to run the roster. At least let him run like a SmackDown or something. Let him run SmackDown and see, because I think if you let him run SmackDown, I think you could knock it out of the park. That would be a nice practice for him. You can even have him run main event and superstars because I think and even Triple H even said about NXT, the one thing he wants to do is he wants to have the NXT superstars start to travel around the world because it would help them get that exposure, and I think that is great. But overall, I really thought this was an awesome podcast to listen to. It had to go 10 extra minutes, but I thought it was fine. It was actually pretty good stuff, way better than Vince McMahon's appearance, like way better. But if you guys want to check it out, you can check it out on the WWE Network for $9.99, or you can get it for free if you just subscribe it this month. Um, I know I just sounded like the WWE, but one reason you should get the network is to see these podcasts because they are awesome. I actually wanted to see this be like a weekly thing. Um, Maybe they'll try to work around that because I think if you can get Stone Cold's podcast on the network, that would make me want to get the network. But we'll see what happens. But that's pretty much it, guys. Thank you guys for watching this video. If you want to subscribe to me, you click right there. And that's pretty much it, guys. Let me know what you thought of the podcast down in the comments. And if you guys thought this review sucked, the reason why I didn't go into too much detail is because I want you guys to check this out for yourselves. And if you thought it sucked, then it's not my fault. But that's pretty much it, guys. See you later.